The photo was already sent before Zara realized what she'd done. Her thumb had moved too fast, her mind too distracted by the excitement of finally looking good after a long week of assignments and stress. The black dress hugged her curves perfectly, her makeup was flawless, and she'd wanted to show her boyfriend how much effort she'd put in for the video call later that night. But in her rush, she'd tapped the wrong contact. The message delivered with that final, damning swoosh sound, and her stomach dropped as she stared at the name on the screen. Unknown number. A number she didn't recognize. A number that definitely wasn't her boyfriend's. Her heart hammered against her ribs as panic flooded through her veins. She'd just sent a provocative photo in a body-hugging dress to a complete stranger. Her mind raced with horrible possibilities. What if it was some creep? What if they saved it? What if they shared it online? Her hands trembled as she quickly typed out an apology, her fingers stumbling over the keyboard. She hit send on the frantic message and threw her phone onto her bed, pacing her small dorm room like a caged animal. This was exactly the kind of mistake that could ruin everything. She was a graduate student in a foreign country, trying to maintain her reputation and focus on her studies. And now, this. If you're already hooked by this story of an innocent mistake that changes everything, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever sent the message to the wrong person. Trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. Now, let's continue. Across the city, in the back of a sleek black Mercedes, Ji-Hwan stared at his phone with an expression that made his bodyguards exchange nervous glances. Their boss never looked surprised. He never showed emotion. But right now, his dark eyes were fixed on the screen with an intensity that made the temperature in the car seem to drop. The photo had appeared out of nowhere. A woman he didn't know, stunning and confident, wearing a dress that should have been illegal. But it wasn't the photo itself that caught him off guard. It was the message that followed seconds later, dripping with genuine panic and embarrassment. The woman was apologizing profusely, explaining the mistake, begging him to delete the photo and forget it ever happened. Most people who accidentally contacted him either realized who he was and disappeared in terror, or they were enemies trying to infiltrate his world. But this was different. This was real, authentic, the kind of innocent mistake that didn't happen in his world of calculated moves and dangerous games. For the first time in years, Ji-Hwan felt something shift in his chest. Something almost like curiosity, almost like amusement. He typed a response, ignoring the questioning looks from his men. "It's okay. You look beautiful." He hesitated before adding, "No need to be embarrassed. These things happen. Delete it if you want. I won't share it." When Zara's phone buzzed, she almost didn't want to look. She'd been sitting on her bed for 10 minutes, mentally preparing herself for the worst. Dick pics, crude comments, threats, blackmail, all the horrible things that could come from sending a photo to a stranger on the internet. But when she finally gathered the courage to check, her eyes widened. The response was kind, respectful, almost gentle. She read it 3 times, trying to detect any hint of sarcasm or creepiness, but it seemed genuine. Her racing heart began to slow as relief washed over her. She typed back a thank you, adding that she appreciated his understanding and maturity. She expected that to be the end of it, a weird moment she'd laugh about someday. But then he responded again, and somehow they kept talking. It started innocently enough. Ji-Hwan asked where she was from, what she was doing so far from home. Zara, still slightly suspicious but increasingly comfortable, told him she was a graduate student studying international business. She was juggling classes, a part-time job, and a long-distance relationship that was slowly falling apart. She didn't know why she shared that last part. Maybe because it was easier to be honest with a stranger. Maybe because she was lonely and he seemed willing to listen. Ji-Hwan found himself genuinely interested. In his world, everyone wanted something from him. Power, protection, money. Fear drove most of his interactions, and respect was earned through violence and intimidation. But this woman knew nothing about him. She treated him like a normal person, and for reasons he couldn't quite explain, that mattered. He asked about her studies, her life abroad, the challenges she faced. He listened when she vented about difficult professors and the homesickness that crept in during quiet moments. Their text conversations stretched into the late hours of the night. Zara would finish her assignments and find herself reaching for her phone, smiling when she saw his messages waiting. Ji-Hwan would sit in his penthouse after dealing with the brutal realities of his business, and her messages felt like a window into a different world, a softer world, a world where people worried about grades and presentations instead of territory wars and betrayal. 3 weeks passed like this, 3 weeks of daily conversations that grew longer and more personal. Zara noticed she was sharing things with this stranger that she couldn't share with her boyfriend anymore. Her dreams, her fears, the little moments of joy that made her days bearable. And he listened. He remembered details. He asked follow-up questions that showed he actually cared about her answers. Ji-Hwan's men noticed a change in him immediately. Their boss, who usually spent evenings reviewing operations and planning strategies, was now constantly on his phone, and sometimes they'd catch the ghost of a smile on his face. It was unsettling. Minho, his right-hand man, finally worked up the courage to ask who he was texting so much. Ji-Hwan had simply looked at him with those cold eyes and said nothing, which was answer enough. Don't ask questions you don't want answered. But the truth was, Ji-Hwan didn't fully understand it himself. He'd been in relationships before, if you could call them that. Arrangements, transactions, women who wanted the status of being with him or the protection his name provided. But Zara didn't know his name, didn't know his reputation. She just knew him as the kind stranger who'd received her photo by mistake and had been decent enough not to make her feel worse about it. To her, he was just Juan, a businessman who worked late hours and had trouble sleeping. One night, after a particularly long text conversation about her stress over an upcoming presentation, Ji-Hwan typed something he'd been thinking about for days. "Can I hear your voice? I'd like to know what you sound like when you're not just words on a screen." Zara's breath caught when she read the message. It felt like a line being crossed, moving from the safety of text into something more real, more intimate. But she'd been thinking the same thing. She'd wondered what his voice sounded like, whether it matched the thoughtful words he typed. Her finger hovered over the call button for a full minute before she finally pressed it. The phone rang once, twice, then his voice came through, deep and smooth, with a slight accent that made her stomach flutter. "Hello, Zara." "Hi," she breathed, suddenly feeling shy. "This is weird, right? We've been talking for weeks and this is the first time I'm hearing your voice." Ji-Hwan leaned back in his leather chair, looking out at the Seoul skyline through his floor-to-ceiling windows. "It's not weird. It's nice. You sound exactly how I imagined." They talked for 2 hours that night. Zara learned that he had a subtle sense of humor, dry and unexpected. She learned that he was an only child, that he'd lost his parents young, that he understood loneliness better than most people. Ji-Hwan learned that her laugh was infectious, that she got passionate when talking about social justice issues, that she had a habit of humming when she was thinking. The phone calls became regular after that. Every few nights, one of them would call, and they'd talk until one of them had to sleep. Ji-Hwan started looking forward to those conversations more than anything else in his carefully controlled life. Zara found herself declining plans with friends just to make sure she'd be available if he called. It was during one of these late-night conversations that Ji-Hwan said something that changed everything. "I want to meet you, if you're comfortable with that. I know this started in an unusual way, but I'd really like to see you in person." Zara's heart raced. She'd been thinking about this possibility for weeks, but hadn't wanted to be the one to suggest it. What if he wasn't who he seemed? What if this was all some elaborate scheme? But another part of her, the part that felt genuinely connected to him, wanted nothing more than to finally see the face behind the voice. "Okay," she said softly. When? They arranged to meet at a small cafe in a quiet neighborhood, neutral territory where Zara felt safe. She spent the entire day before obsessing over what to wear, what to say, whether she was making a huge mistake. Her roommate thought she was crazy for meeting an internet stranger, but Zara couldn't explain the feeling she had. This wasn't just some random guy. This was Ji-Hwan, who knew her favorite color and remembered that she hated cilantro and always asked how her day went before talking about his own. The day of the meeting, Zara changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a casual but cute look. Jeans, a soft sweater, her natural hair and twists that framed her face. She wanted to look nice, but not like she was trying too hard. She arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, too nervous to be late, and ordered a coffee she was too anxious to drink. Ji-Hwan, meanwhile, was dealing with his own crisis. He'd sent his men ahead to secure the area, which had earned him questioning looks from everyone on his team. The boss never met anyone in public without good reason. He never showed his face in civilian spaces unless absolutely necessary, and he definitely never acted nervous about a meeting. But here he was, adjusting his jacket for the 10th time, wondering if he should have worn something less formal. Minho had pulled him aside that morning with a serious expression. "Boss, are you sure about this? Meeting someone in public? Someone we haven't vetted? Someone who could be anyone?" Ji-Hwan had fixed him with a cold stare. "I'm sure. Make sure the perimeter is secure, but stay out of sight. I don't want her scared off." This was the problem with his life. Everything was a potential threat. Everyone was a possible enemy. But Zara wasn't part of that world, and he wanted to keep it that way. When Ji-Hwan arrived at the cafe, Zara's breath caught in her throat. She'd been expecting someone normal, maybe handsome based on the confidence in his voice. But the man who walked through the door was something else entirely. He moved with a kind of controlled grace that made people instinctively step aside. Tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her entire semester's tuition, with features that belonged in a Korean drama. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Dark, intense, guarded. The kind of eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. For a moment, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Then he saw her, and his entire expression softened. A small, genuine smile touched his lips as he walked toward her table. And suddenly, she could see the man she'd been talking to all these weeks, the man behind the intimidating exterior. "Zara," he said, and his voice was warm. "It's really you." She stood, feeling awkward and excited all at once. "It's really you too. Wow, you're very different from what I imagined." Ji-Hwan's smile widened slightly as he pulled out a chair for her, a gesture so old-fashioned and courteous that it made her heart flutter. "Different good or different bad?" "Just different," she said, settling back into her seat. "You didn't mention you look like you stepped out of a fashion magazine." He laughed, a sound she'd heard over the phone, but that seemed richer in person. "And you didn't mention that you're even more beautiful than that accidental photo suggested." Zara felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You're going to make me relive my most embarrassing moment already." "Consider it payback for the heart attack I gave my security team by insisting on this meeting." "Security team?" Zara's eyebrows rose. "What do you do exactly that requires a security team?" Ji-Hwan's expression flickered with something she couldn't quite read. "I told you I'm in business. Import-export mostly. It requires some precautions in this city. Seoul can be unpredictable." It was a smooth deflection, and part of Zara knew there was more to the story. But sitting across from him, watching the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way he listened so intensely when she spoke, She decided she didn't care. Not right now. Right now, she just wanted to enjoy the moment. They talked for hours. The cafe staff started giving them pointed looks as closing time approached, but neither of them noticed. Ji-Hwan asked about her thesis, actually understanding the complex economic theories she was exploring. Zara asked about his work, and while his answers were vague, she could tell he was intelligent and strategic in ways that went beyond normal business dealings. He touched her hand when making a point, and electricity shot through her at the contact. She made him laugh with a story about her disastrous attempt at cooking Korean food, and his laugh was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. When they finally left the cafe, the sun had set and the street was quiet. Ji-Hwan walked her toward the main road to catch a taxi, but his hand found hers naturally, fingers intertwining like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Zara's heart hammered in her chest. This was supposed to be just a meeting, just confirming they connected as well in person as they did over text. But this felt like so much more. At the taxi stand, Ji-Hwan turned to face her fully, and the streetlight cast shadows across his handsome features. "Thank you for taking a chance on meeting me. I know it was probably scary." "It was terrifying," Zara admitted, looking up at him. "But I'm glad I did. You're exactly who I hoped you'd be." He reached up, gently tucking a twist behind her ear, and the gesture was so tender it made her breath catch. "Can I see you again? Soon?" "Yes," she whispered. "I'd really like that." The kiss happened naturally, inevitably. Ji-Hwan leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Zara met him halfway. It was soft and sweet and perfect, the kind of first kiss that promised more. When they pulled apart, both were smiling like teenagers. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a pattern. Secret meetings at quiet restaurants, walks through parks where nobody knew either of them, late-night phone calls that stretched into early morning. Zara's studies suffered slightly because she couldn't stop thinking about him. Ji-Hwan's men noticed their boss was distracted, sometimes smiling at his phone during serious meetings, and it made them nervous. Their world didn't allow for softness, didn't allow for weakness, and what Ji-Hwan felt for Zara was definitely a weakness. It was Minho who first noticed the tail. A rival organization's scouts, watching their boss's movements, noting his unusual behavior. They'd seen him with a woman, a foreign woman, and that information was valuable. Everyone knew Ji-Hwan never showed interest in anyone, never let anyone close. This was an anomaly worth investigating. Minho reported his concerns immediately. "Boss, you're being watched. They've seen you with her. This isn't safe." Ji-Hwan's expression turned to ice. "Handle it. Make sure they understand that she's off limits." But the warning came too late. The rival organization, led by a vicious man named Kang, saw opportunity. Ji-Hwan had always been untouchable, always 3 steps ahead, always willing to do whatever it took. But now he had something to lose. And in their world, anything you loved could be used against you. Zara first noticed something was wrong when she started seeing the same car parked near her dorm. Then the strange man who seemed to be at the library every time she was. She told herself she was being paranoid, that living in a foreign country was making her jumpy. But the feeling of being watched persisted, growing stronger each day. She mentioned it to Ji-Hwan during one of their phone calls, trying to keep her voice light. "I think I'm going crazy, but I feel like someone's following me. Is that weird?" The silence on the other end was heavy. "Where are you right now?" Ji-Hwan's voice had changed, become harder, sharper. "At my dorm. Why? Hwan, you're scaring me." "Stay inside. Lock your door. I'm sending someone to watch your building. I'll explain everything soon. I promise." He hung up before she could ask more questions, leaving Zara staring at her phone in confusion and growing fear. What had she gotten herself into? Who was this man she'd been falling for? Ji-Hwan made 3 calls in rapid succession. The first to Minho, ordering a protection detail on Zara immediately. The second to his intelligence network, demanding to know everything about who was tailing her and why. The third to Kang, his voice deadly calm as he delivered a warning. Touch her, and there won't be anywhere in this world you can hide from me. Kang's laugh on the other end was cruel. So the Ice Prince finally has a heart. How inconvenient for you. Maybe we should test just how much she means to you. The line went dead. Ji-Hwan stood in his penthouse, hands clenched into fists, rage and fear warring inside him. He'd known this was a risk, known that letting Zara into his life would paint a target on her back. But he'd been selfish, wanting her presence in his dark world like a candle in the void. Now she was in danger because of him. He had to tell her the truth, all of it, and he had to do it in person. When Ji-Hwan showed up at Zara's dorm that night, he looked different, harder. There were bruises on his knuckles that hadn't been there that morning. Two large men in dark suits flanked him, and Zara understood with sudden, terrifying clarity that whatever she'd suspected about his life, the reality was probably much worse. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Can we go somewhere private?" They ended up in his car, the privacy partition up, his bodyguards giving them space but staying close. Ji-Hwan took her hands in his, and she could feel the tension radiating from him. "I haven't been completely honest with you about what I do, about who I am." Zara's stomach twisted. "Okay, so tell me now." He took a deep breath, his dark eyes meeting hers with raw vulnerability. "My family was involved in organized crime. When my father was killed, I took over the organization. I run a significant portion of the underground operations in Seoul. Protection, territory, things that would horrify you. I'm not a good man, Zara. I've done things that would give you nightmares." She sat very still, processing this information. The security team, the expensive suits, the way people seemed nervous around him. It all made sense now. "Are you telling me you're in the Mafia?" "That's the Western term. Here we call it something different, but yes, essentially that's what I am. And because you've been seen with me, because I've been careless about protecting you, you're now in danger. A rival organization is watching you, and they want to use you to get to me." Zara pulled her hands away, her mind racing. She should be terrified, should run as far and fast as she could. But looking at Ji-Hwan's face, seeing the genuine anguish there, she found herself asking a different question. "Have you hurt innocent people? Children? Women who didn't deserve it?" "No," he said firmly. "Never. I have lines I don't cross. But I've hurt people, Zara. People who threatened what's mine. People who crossed me. I won't lie to you about that." "And what am I to you?" she asked softly. "What is this to you?" Ji-Hwan reached for her again, his touch gentle despite the violence in his past. "You're everything I didn't know I needed. You're light in a life that's been dark for so long. I know I should let you go, push you away for your own safety, but I'm too selfish. I want you in my life, even if it means risking yours, which makes me exactly the monster you should be afraid of." Zara was quiet for a long moment, her heart pounding. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to run, to cut ties with this dangerous man and go back to her safe, boring life. But her heart, her traitorous heart, remembered his kindness, his gentleness, the way he listened like she was the most important person in the world, the way he made her feel seen and valued in ways her actual boyfriend never had. If you like where this story is going, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me if you think Zara should stay or run. And keep watching because the next part is going to shock you. "I'm not afraid of you," she finally said, and watched surprise flicker across his face. "I'm afraid for you, and I'm afraid of whoever is threatening me. But you? The man who received my embarrassing photo and responded with kindness? The man who remembers that I take my coffee with oat milk and asks about my grandmother's health? That man doesn't scare me. You should be scared, he said roughly. You should run as far from me as possible. Probably, she agreed, but I'm not going to. So what do we do now? What they did now was complicated. Ji-Hwan moved Zara to a secure apartment with 24-hour protection. She protested at first, insisting she needed to maintain some normalcy. But after receiving a photo of herself leaving class with the threatening message attached, she agreed. The apartment was luxurious, but felt like a gilded cage. She could still attend classes, but bodyguards accompanied her everywhere. She could still see friends, but only in vetted locations. Her life, which had been independent and free, now revolved around safety protocols and security sweeps. Ji-Hwan visited every evening, and those hours were the only time Zara felt like herself. They cooked together, his skills surprisingly domestic for a crime boss. They'd watch movies, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her protectively. They'd talk about everything and nothing, carefully avoiding the topic of the danger that surrounded them. In those moments, they were just two people falling deeper in love despite every reason they shouldn't. But the situation was escalating. King was getting bolder, his messages more explicit. He wanted Ji-Hwan to give up territory, to show weakness, and he was willing to hurt Zara to make it happen. Ji-Hwan's men urged him to go to war, to strike first and eliminate the threat. But Ji-Hwan hesitated, knowing that open conflict would only put Zara in more danger. The attack came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Zara was returning from the library with her bodyguards when a van screeched to a stop beside them. Armed men poured out, and what happened next was chaos. Gunfire, shouting, her bodyguards fighting back while pushing her towards safety. But there were too many attackers, and they'd planned too well. Someone grabbed Zara from behind, a cloth pressed over her mouth and nose. The chemical smell made her head spin. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was one of her bodyguards on the ground, bleeding. When Ji-Hwan got the call, he was in a meeting with his lieutenants. Minho's voice was tight with panic. Boss, they took her. They took Zara. 3 of our men are dead. 2 critical. They were ready for us. Ji-Hwan didn't remember ending the meeting, didn't remember the drive to his command center. All he knew was that the world had gone red around the edges. Rage so pure and powerful that it scared even his most hardened men. He called King, his voice deadly calm. Where is she? King's smug voice came through the line. Safe. For now. But that could change very quickly. I think it's time we renegotiate our arrangement. Don't you? If you hurt her, if you touch a single hair on her head, I will tear your organization apart piece by piece. I will make you watch everyone you care about die before I finally let you join them. You've just started a war you cannot win. Big words from a man who's compromised. You have 24 hours to give me what I want or the girl dies. And trust me, it won't be quick or pleasant. The line went dead. Ji-Hwan stood surrounded by his men, his mind working at lightning speed. He couldn't give Kang what he wanted, couldn't show that kind of weakness or it would never end. But he couldn't let Zara die, couldn't lose the one pure thing in his dark life. Minho stepped forward. We can track her. We have resources. We'll find her and get her back. And then, Ji-Hwan said quietly, we end this. All of it. I want every asset we have mobilized. I want to know where Kang is keeping her within 6 hours. And I want a strike team ready to move the moment we have a location. What about the territory? What about the concessions he wants? He can have hell, Ji-Hwan said coldly, because that's where I'm sending him. Meanwhile, Zara awoke in a dark room with a splitting headache. Her wrists were bound, her mouth gagged. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to breathe slowly through her nose, to assess the situation. The room was sparse, a single chair, a door with light seeping under it, voices outside speaking Korean too quickly for her limited understanding. The door opened and a man entered. He was older, scarred, with eyes that held no mercy. "So you're the one who's made our ice prince go soft. I expected someone more impressive." Zara glared at him, unable to respond through the gag. He smiled, clearly enjoying her helplessness. "Don't worry, sweetheart. If your boyfriend gives me what I want, you'll be returned mostly unharmed. If he doesn't, well, let's just say you'll serve as an excellent lesson about the cost of caring in our world." He left her alone again, and Zara felt tears sting her eyes. She'd known this was possible, had agreed to stay despite the danger, but the reality of being kidnapped and threatened was overwhelming. She thought about Ji-Hwan, imagined his fury and fear. She prayed he wouldn't do something reckless to save her, prayed that somehow they'd both survive this. Ji-Hwan's team worked with military precision. They traced Kang's communication signals, bribed informants, called in every favor owed. Within 5 hours, they had a location, an old warehouse on the edge of the city, abandoned for years, but recently showing signs of activity. Satellite imagery confirmed multiple vehicles and heat signatures inside. The rescue operation was planned for 2 in the morning, minimum visibility, maximum surprise. Ji-Hwan would lead the team personally, despite Minho's protests. This wasn't about strategy anymore. This was personal. They moved in silence, a force of 20 highly trained men against Kang's guards. The first wave went down without raising an alarm. The second wave put up a fight, but Ji-Hwan's men were better trained and more motivated. He moved through the warehouse like death itself, his gun an extension of his will. When Ji-Hwan finally found the room where they were keeping Zara, his heart stopped. She was tied to a chair, a bruise blooming on her cheekbone, but alive. Her eyes widened when she saw him, relief and fear mixing together. He was across the room in seconds, cutting her bonds with a knife, pulling the gag from her mouth. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands gentle as they checked her for injuries, despite the violence he'd just committed to reach her. "Did they touch you?" "I'm okay," Zara gasped, her arms going around his neck. "I'm okay now. You came for me." "Always," he breathed into her hair. "I will always come for you." The moment was shattered by gunfire outside. Kang had realized what was happening and was mounting a counterattack. Ji-Hwan pulled Zara behind him, his body a shield between her and danger. Minho appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we need to move. Now." What followed was a running battle through the warehouse. Zara stayed close to Ji-Hwan, terrified but trusting him completely. She saw a side of him she'd never witnessed before. Cold, efficient, deadly. This was the man who ruled the underworld, who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. But even in the chaos, his priority was her safety. Every decision he made, every move he executed, was designed to get her out alive. They made it to the vehicles with minimal casualties on their side. Kang's men weren't so lucky. As they drove away, Ji-Hwan held Zara against his chest, his heart pounding so hard she could feel it. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should never have let you into my world." "Stop," Zara said firmly, pulling back to look at him. "I chose to stay. I chose this, and I choose it again." "Why?" he asked desperately. "Why would you choose this nightmare?" "Because I love you," she said simply. "Because despite everything you've done, despite the darkness you live in, I see who you really are, and that person is worth fighting for." Ji-Hwan kissed her then, deep and passionate and desperate. When they pulled apart, his eyes were wet. "I love you too, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. And that's why I need to change. This life, this violence, it can't continue. Not if I want a future with you." The decision wasn't made lightly. Over the next few weeks, Ji-Hwan began the dangerous process of extracting himself from the criminal underworld. He couldn't just walk away. There were too many connections, too many people who depended on the organization. But he could transition. He could legitimize the business operations and hand over the illegal aspects to trusted lieutenants who understood the game. Kang's organization was dismantled as a warning to others. Ji-Hwan showed no mercy to the man who threatened Zara, and the message was clear. Some lines couldn't be crossed. Some people were untouchable. Zara watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and concern. She saw how hard Ji-Hwan worked to build something legitimate. He invested in security firms, real estate, import-export businesses that actually imported legal goods. He used his strategic mind and business acumen to build an empire that didn't rely on fear and violence. It wasn't easy. There were threats from those who felt betrayed. There were nights when Ji-Hwan came home exhausted and discouraged. But Zara was there, supporting him, believing in him when he struggled to believe in himself. She helped him see that he could be more than his past, that redemption was possible.
Her thesis was on economic recovery and legitimization in developing nations. With Ji-Hwan's real-world experience, her research took on new depth. She understood the complexities of transitioning from illegal to legal economies in ways few academics could. Her professors were impressed. Her defense was brilliant, and when she graduated with honors, Ji-Hwan was in the front row, pride radiating from him. After the ceremony, he took her to a rooftop garden overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Zara laughed, wiping away happy tears. "I can't believe we made it here. After everything, we actually made it." Ji-Hwan pulled a small box from his pocket, and Zara's breath caught. "This isn't a proposal. Not yet. I want to do that properly when I've fully left my old life behind. But this is a promise." He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, a black pearl surrounded by diamonds. Black pearls are rare and valuable. They're formed when something foreign enters an oyster, and instead of being destroyed, it's transformed into something beautiful. That's what you did for me, Zara. You entered my dark world by accident, and instead of being destroyed by it, you transformed it. You transformed me. Tears streamed down Zara's face as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "The day I sent that photo was the most embarrassing moment of my life. And the best moment of mine," he said softly, pulling her close. "One mistake, one accidental message, and it changed everything." As they kissed against the backdrop of the Seoul skyline, Zara thought about the journey they'd been on, the fear, the danger, the impossible love that had bloomed in the darkest circumstances. She'd come to Korea to study business, and instead had found something far more valuable. She had found love that transformed, love that redeemed, love that proved even the darkest hearts could find light. If you love this story of an accidental message that changed 2 lives forever, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more amazing love stories, and comment below telling me what you think happens next for Zara and Ji-Hwan. Do they get married? Does his past come back to haunt them? Let me know your theories. And remember, sometimes the best things in life come from the mistakes we're most embarrassed about. Sometimes one wrong number can lead you to exactly the right person. Until next time, keep believing in love, even when it finds you in the most unexpected ways.